This was a takeover of a movie.
She just wants to own it all. And that's fine. If that is your method of working, then do that. But you have to create your own projects. You have to put yourself in that position that you are in charge, not take it from somebody else.
He built that movie. He found the book. He had the rights to it. He believed in it before anybody else. He put his money into it. He put everything into that project.
And this is a powerful thing that you're going through, and your whole career seems to have been gone and vanished before your very eyes.
Imagine a dazzling Hollywood icon worshipped by millions, only for a disturbing web of manipulation to surface beneath the shine. Could Blake Lively's flawless charm conceal something far darker? What did Bryan Freedman truly expose, and why does he claim it could end her career? This revelation might shatter everything you believed about her.
This would be in the complaint. I truly believe that in my heart, because it's absolutely crazy as you listen to this. She really does just kind of line out what her method is. And there's just a lack of self-awareness here that is just, it's insane. It's actually insane to watch. And I'm very surprised that she felt comfortable enough to say all of this out loud. And I don't feel like it's taking things out of context. I don't feel like it's manipulating her to look a certain way. This is her talking. This is her interview where she is being honored. And I have questions. That's all I'm
like Forbes Power Women. And she's so confident. Exactly. I think that's so telling how confident she is to just say, I have no qualms lying to the director, taking control of their movie, pulling the rug from them. Like, oh my God.
Blake Lively has long been celebrated as Hollywood's golden girl, flawless in public, charmingly relatable in interviews, and admired by those who work beside her. She's the kind of actress who can deliver a witty, effortless quip on a late-night talk show, then glide onto a red carpet hours later and steal every flash of the camera. Her rise to stardom seemed seamless, powered by her breakout role as Serena van der Woodsen on Gossip Girl, where her natural charisma and elegance blurred the line between character and reality. Off-screen, Blake appeared to embody balance itself, an accomplished actress, a loving wife, and a devoted mother, earning the admiration of fans and peers who viewed her as the rare celebrity who truly had it all. Yet, even as her fame reached its peak, faint whispers began to circulate, quiet but persistent, suggesting that her seemingly perfect story wasn't quite as pristine as it appeared. From time to time, anonymous remarks surfaced from collaborators who hinted she might be more concerned with image and control than she let on. One crew member from a lesser-known project described her as involved in everything, from creative decisions to production details far outside her role. At first, these stories were brushed aside, her behavior reframed as the mark of an actress deeply committed to her craft, someone who genuinely cared about every aspect of the process. In an industry as unpredictable as Hollywood, that kind of dedication was often praised. After all, it wasn't common to find an A-lister crouched behind the camera debating lighting angles or collaborating with costume designers over fabric choices. For years, that hands-on reputation worked in her favor. Directors applauded her focus, fans admired her work ethic, and Blake herself cultivated a public image of authenticity, grounded, humorous, and humble. She laughed about kitchen disasters on Instagram, playfully teased her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and maintained the illusion of a star who is both glamorous and down-to-earth. But then came the subtle shifts, the quiet accounts that painted a different picture. Crew members began describing incidents where Blake seemed to assume control in ways that disrupted normal boundaries, taking over production calls, redirecting creative choices, or overruling directors without clear authority. It was never loud or chaotic. She didn't throw fits or demand attention. Instead, it was methodical, measured, an understated form of power that some described as manipulative rather than collaborative. For a while, these stories were dismissed as exaggerations of her perfectionism. But as time went on, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Everything came to a breaking point on the set of It Ends With Us, the project heralded as her first major reinvention in years. Those familiar with her exacting tendencies saw what unfolded as predictable, while newcomers were caught off guard by how quickly her carefully curated image began to fracture. This time, it wasn't about being hands-on. It was about control taken too far, a quiet unraveling that hinted at something much darker beneath her polished surface. The question now is, what truly happened on that set, and who finally stepped forward to reveal it?
Harvey, imagine you being accused of something that you just didn't do. You just weren't part of, and you're caught up in this, and you're a real decent human being, and this is a powerful thing that you're going through, and your whole career seems to have been gone and vanished before your very eyes.
I'm confused about that. I know William Morris dropped Justin, but at the same time, more people know who this guy is than they did before this. And just in terms of, the street Nielsen's that I see, just in terms of, what comes at us here at TMZ, that Blake was winning at the beginning and it turned around and she's not now. So isn't it mission accomplished? Because, I know you're suing for huge numbers, but especially your lawsuit against Blake. I feel like her lawsuit was a PR to try and salvage PR, and his was a reaction to that. And hasn't that all kind of been settled at this point?
I think what hasn't been settled is the fact that they've lost 4 projects, significant projects, the studio. There's obviously the reputational and emotional distress harm. He's got 2 little kids that pay attention to what goes on in the world. His wife is devastated, and there's others involved in this too that have lost significant business and personal relationships.
On the set of It Ends With Us, the production was designed to explore heavy, deeply personal themes, the kind that make filming intimate scenes especially sensitive. That's where intimacy coordinators play an essential role in modern Hollywood, ensuring actors feel safe, respected, and protected while maintaining creative integrity. Their job is to establish boundaries, choreograph moments with consent, and build a sense of trust between performers and directors. But according to several insiders, things on this particular set didn't remain collaborative for long, especially once Blake Lively began asserting control. While an official intimacy coordinator was present, multiple sources claim Blake gradually began stepping into that role herself, taking charge of creative decisions that went far beyond what was expected from her as an actress. She reportedly dictated camera angles, adjusted physical choreography, and restructured movements to match what she described as her own comfort level. At first, many on the crew saw her involvement as thorough or even protective, both of herself and her co-star, Justin Ballon. But soon, her actions began to raise concern. One insider described the atmosphere as tense, explaining how Blake would frequently interrupt scenes to override the director's guidance or dismiss the coordinator's input altogether. She justified her changes as a way to avoid improvisation, claiming it made her uneasy, yet crew members started to question her true intentions. Was she genuinely safeguarding her boundaries or quietly reshaping the narrative to keep control? Witnesses recalled her taking charge during key moments, instructing retakes that left little room for creative collaboration and positioning herself as the final authority in scenes meant to be carefully balanced between multiple perspectives. The tension reportedly deepened once her decisions began to directly impact Justin Ballon. Several on set observed that Blake's critiques often centered on him, subtly framing his behavior as unpredictable or uncomfortable, as if she were preemptively setting the stage for how things might later be perceived. One crew member even described her comments as sharp and deliberate, saying it felt like she was controlling not just the scenes, but the perception of those scenes long before filming wrapped. Justin, by most accounts, remained professional but increasingly withdrawn, minimizing off-camera interactions and focusing strictly on his work. Some chalked it up to standard creative differences, while others saw something more deliberate, a quiet maneuvering of power that extended beyond the script. What made it all more unsettling was how, months later, Blake would reportedly cite these same scenes as the foundation for her claims against Justin, accusing him of crossing physical boundaries and improvising without consent. Yet several people close to the production insist the footage and the behind-the-scenes accounts, tell a different story entirely, one where Blake herself had directed much of the choreography she later condemned. As the fallout grew, those who had witnessed the dynamic firsthand couldn't shake the lingering question that hovered over the entire set. Was Blake's insistence on control truly about maintaining comfort and professionalism, or about ensuring that, no matter what happened, the spotlight never drifted from her grasp?
Built that movie. He found the book. He had the rights to it. He believed in it before anybody else. He put his money into it. He put everything into that project. And then he says, I want you, Blake. Blake's a little bit, and then he's even willing to give her that. And she still, it's not enough. You don't even get to come to the premiere. You're not allowed in the premiere. Fine, but he goes in the basement when I show up. I mean, that's not authorship. That's not autonomy. That's control. That's selfishness. That's entitlement. This woman is a monster.
On the surface, everything on the set of It Ends With Us appeared to be running smoothly. Blake Lively, the film's leading star, carried herself with the grace and professionalism expected from a Hollywood veteran. But behind that polished image, a different reality was taking shape, one that several anonymous crew members have since described as far more complicated. Their accounts reveal a subtle but persistent pattern of control that wasn't easy to challenge at the time, but, in hindsight, speaks volumes. One crew member characterized Blake's behavior as deliberate and calculated, explaining that she had a knack for presenting herself as a problem solver rather than a source of tension. She always framed it as fixing something, making the scene better, protecting boundaries, or keeping everyone comfortable, the source explained. Yet, according to others on set, those so-called fixes often came at the expense of the director's authority or the established chain of command. Blake wasn't simply offering input, she was steering key aspects of production, sometimes without consulting the professionals responsible for them. Her charm, precision, and calm demeanor made it nearly impossible for anyone to push back. She was never aggressive, but always in control. Crew members began to notice a clear pattern. If Blake's choices conflicted with others, her version always prevailed. In one instance, during the filming of a pivotal scene, she allegedly dismissed the choreography set by the intimacy coordinator, calling it awkward, and replaced it with her own design. That same coordinator later confided that Blake's alterations crossed pre-established boundaries, but no one on the main production team dared to confront her. She wasn't shouting or throwing tantrums, one person said. But are you really going to challenge someone like Blake Lively over creative direction? That's a losing battle. Over time, these isolated incidents began to accumulate, forming a picture of something much larger. What had initially seemed like perfectionism started to resemble manipulation. Crew members recalled how her adjustments consistently tilted situations in her favor, reshaping scenes, influencing dynamics, and subtly reframing tension on set. One insider suggested that her need for control might not have been spontaneous at all, but strategic, a deliberate effort to shape how certain interactions would later be perceived both on and off camera. Despite growing unease among the crew, few spoke up. You don't call out someone with her level of influence, another source explained. You just keep your head down and do your job. But once filming wrapped, their stories began to trickle out, each one adding weight to the last. The whispers, once scattered, eventually formed a cohesive narrative, one that Bryan Freedman would later uncover and use to devastating effect. And as those accounts surfaced, a question began to echo through every corner of the production. What had Freedman discovered that made Blake Lively's carefully guarded image so impossible to defend?
This was a takeover of a movie. And, whether we find out exactly what the reasons for the takeover were and who was behind the takeover, I think that we're going to find some interesting documents when Discovery starts. And I'm looking forward to Discovery, because when you start to look into what was in Stephanie Jones's hands and what was in Leslie Sloan's hands and what was in Blake Lively's text messages, and what those discussions were like, I think we're going to find the answers to this really quickly.
Bryan Freedman's name carries serious weight in Hollywood. Renowned for managing high-profile legal battles and cleaning up scandals that could sink careers, he's the man powerful people call when they need decisive results. Over the years, He's handled everything from multi-million-dollar lawsuits to crisis management for some of the industry's most recognizable stars. But his latest case placed Blake Lively squarely in the spotlight, and what he presented was far more than just another celebrity controversy. Freedman's findings contained evidence so compelling it upended the entire narrative surrounding Blake's claims of victimhood. To understand the fallout, it's important to revisit her accusations against her co-star, Justin Ballon. Blake alleged that Justin had improvised during intimate scenes, crossing boundaries in ways she described as invasive and unprofessional. On the surface, her story painted a familiar picture, a male actor overstepping, leaving his female colleague uncomfortable. Yet Freedman didn't just challenge that account. He dismantled it, piece by piece, with documentation that left little room for interpretation. His team presented behind-the-scenes footage, internal correspondence, and testimony from multiple crew members, all pointing toward a strikingly different version of events. Contrary to Blake's allegations, the evidence revealed that she had been the driving force behind the choreography of those scenes. One recording reportedly showed her directing camera placement and instructing both her own and Justin's physical positioning in exact detail. Ironically, these very moments later became central to her public claims against him. Crew statements confirmed what the footage suggested. Blake hadn't simply participated, she had orchestrated. Several described how she called for retakes, dictated levels of physical contact, and adjusted scenes to match her vision, often diverging from the approved choreography. Freedman used these accounts to demonstrate that Blake hadn't been blindsided by improvisation at all. She'd been in complete control. One insider summed it up bluntly. It was hard to tell where Blake ended and the character began. She was running the entire show. But perhaps the most damaging blow came when Freedman revealed email exchanges and call sheets showing that some of Blake's on-set demands directly contradicted her later statements of discomfort. The implications were enormous. If her claims about Justin were proven false, they wouldn't just be misleading, they could appear calculated. For someone long admired for authenticity and professionalism, the possibility that Blake had manipulated the situation struck at the heart of her public persona. Freedman's evidence didn't just challenge her credibility, it fractured it, both in the court of public opinion and within the Hollywood circles that once championed her. And as the industry began to absorb the full scope of what he uncovered, one unsettling realization became clear. This was only the beginning of a much larger unraveling.
We gave her everything. What else can we still do? Yeah. So it is odd. But so final question, because they asked, could it go to jail? And you're like, it's unlikely. Is it more likely that Stephanie Jones could go to jail? And if Blake was more involved and actually pushed that stuff to happen, could there be any sort of criminal facing
they really gotta flesh out those facts, because to the extent that this was a directive of Stephanie Jones to get this stuff, then she would be the one directly implicated, including whoever were her agents potentially that knew they were doing criminal stuff. How do they tie that into Lively, that they were acting under Lively's direction? That would implicate Lively, but I don't see that connection yet. All I know is the theory is they shared those communications with Lively either at her direction or voluntarily, and I don't know which is which. It's not impossible that she's going to go to jail, but if there is a fact pattern that suggests that Lively ordered her to do these illegal theft of personal messages on Jones or Abel's phone, then potentially she could face criminal scrutiny through agency theory, I guess, potentially. But it's far-fetched, you know?
It is far-fetched.
I don't think she's going to be the one under the fire for this one.
Blake Lively's career once appeared untouchable, but Bryan Freedman's revelations changed that illusion overnight. The fallout was immediate and severe, shattering both public perception and the Hollywood network that had long fueled her rise to superstardom. For years, she had been regarded as the epitome of professionalism, graceful, disciplined, and consistently reliable. Studios trusted her, collaborators praised her, and fans adored her. Yet, once Freedman's evidence surfaced, the carefully constructed image began to fracture beyond repair. Hollywood insiders started distancing themselves almost instantly, and the quiet shift in support spoke volumes. Reports from those connected to her upcoming projects revealed hesitation among producers and investors, with some pausing development entirely until the controversy settled. At least one brand partnership has reportedly gone cold, with a company spokesperson explaining, "We're reassessing our collaborations in light of recent revelations." Though not a formal severing of ties, it sent a clear message. Aligning with Blake Lively had become a reputational risk, and few were willing to stake their credibility on someone now synonymous with manipulation and mistrust. Equally revealing was the divided response from her once loyal fan base. Some defended her fiercely, arguing she was being unfairly targeted and emphasizing her long-standing charitable work, her image as a devoted mother, and her consistent professionalism as proof of her integrity. Others, however, pointed to Freedman's evidence as undeniable, suggesting that Blake's charm had always been part of a larger performance, one that hid a pattern of control behind the scenes. Online, debates grew chaotic and relentless. Social media hashtags alternated between defending and denouncing her, keeping her every move under microscopic scrutiny. Yet beyond the noise, a larger question emerged about accountability and image in the entertainment industry. Hollywood has seen many of its stars fall from grace, but Blake's situation feels uniquely jarring. The dissonance between her wholesome, relatable public persona and the darker allegations of manipulation unsettled even those within her inner circle. As one veteran film executive bluntly put it, "The trust people had in her was her greatest asset. Once that's gone, there's no easy way to rebuild it." Her path forward now depends not only on the court of public opinion but on the legal one as well. If Freedman's documentation withstands legal scrutiny, and industry whispers suggest it will, the consequences could extend far beyond a damaged reputation. Rumors have already circulated of potential lawsuits from those who claim to have been affected by her actions on set. In today's Hollywood, where perception shifts faster than ever and digital narratives can define careers overnight, a single misstep can end what years of success built. Blake Lively's once certain future now hangs in the balance, shadowed by uncertainty and doubt. Is this the final act of her Hollywood story, or the beginning of a calculated redemption arc? History has shown that the industry loves a comeback almost as much as a scandal, but this time, recovery might prove far more difficult. The nature of these allegations cuts deep, questioning not just conduct but authenticity itself. Whatever happens next, her story serves as a striking reminder of how fragile fame truly is. The boundary between professionalism and manipulation in Hollywood has always been razor thin, and Blake Lively's fall illustrates how easily it can blur. Was her control on set the mark of a conscientious artist, or a calculated attempt to reshape reality in her favor? Behind every flawless public image lies a web of unseen complexities. This scandal exposes just how thin the veneer of celebrity can be. And as the industry grapples with what her story represents, one truth remains clear. In Hollywood, power and perception don't just coexist. They collide, spectacularly, in full view of the world.
you can't just put me in any clothes and give me any words and have me step in and transform. And I used to be very insecure about that. I used to like feel like an imposter because I would watch actors who were just shapeshifters. They could do it in any circumstance. And then I realized that half of the actors that I admire most were people who were more filmmakers, or people who had to get their hands in the storytelling and the writing and the creating and the environment, and people that I respected so much. And I was like, oh, okay, there's two different categories, and I'm in this category, and that's okay. So once I started embracing that and leaning into it and not feeling embarrassed about it, I think I was able to do the best.
You guys have known each other a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Since you were 8?
No, 11.
No, 11. I was like,
He thinks it was less than it was. He thinks it was 8 years. It was definitely 9. Yeah. Years ago that we knew each other. It was very like passionate, but I lost a lot of friends because of it.
Yeah.
So you know that was hard to deal with, but
You guys are so beautiful to watch that I was just like,
well, hello.
I was just like,
everyone gains 10 points next to her. You just, you go out and that's all you get today, though. That's it.
I know, I can't believe you.
That's it.
Like
No,
camera
just that.
compliments.
Yeah,
Off
no.
camera,
Yeah.
not so nice.
No, never. Never.
Gotta keep her grounded.
No, yeah, absolutely. I've seen her go into a rage spiral. Oh my God. And most people, it's violence. For her, it's just baking. She just bakes.
Lively and Ryan Reynolds are firing back against the lawyers for Justin Baldoni, claiming that statements that are being made in the public right now are wrong and they need to be stopped. Plus, we have an official answer to Lively's complaint from Baldoni's side. What is being admitted? What is being denied? We're going to get into it all right now.
like more details are unraveling as we go, and this is not, they're not in your favor, Billy. I think
I don't even like the movie.
Yeah,
you love it. You don't like it. You love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.